Greetings, and welcome to Hearthstone Theory's top 3 foreseen, feared, and forgotten cards of the Witchwood expansion. The rules for the list are simple. The top 3 foreseen cards are the ones that I believe will be intriguing and interesting, seeing moderate amounts of play while always seeming fair to the players. The top 3 feared cards are the ones that are likely to be incredibly prevalent and, most importantly, unfun. Seeing your opponent play these cards will make you groan, and playing them yourself will feel like a cop-out. The top 3 forgotten cards are the ones that simply don't work. I'm notably not talking about pack fillers, but rather I'm considering cards that look promising, but ultimately cannot output results. Before I begin, a small disclaimer. This video is a prediction, and very well might be completely wrong. Once the meta cools down, one of these cards may surprise us with unexpected mediocrity or success. In addition, the difference between foreseen and feared is a subjective one. One man's Patches the Pirates is another man's Reno Jackson. So try not to take offense if a card you like is on the feared list, or a card you think is OP is on the good list. That being said, let's get underway with my predictions, the top 3 foreseen, feared, and forgotten of the Witchwood. A magnificent card from Karazhan was the Curator, since it required that a deck was built in a particular way to ensure you received the benefit of its card draw. The beauty of an effect like that is even better conveyed with Countess Ashmore. However, a key aspect that is important to note with the Countess is that she is much more distinctly focused on control. Rush, Lifesteal, and Death Rattle all benefit from a more methodical deck, meaning that Ashmore works best to serve as card draw sustenance in such a deck. However, unlike the Curator, this card does not provide taunt, so it still has weaknesses against more aggressive opponents. But overall, the power present in this card is remarkable to behold. I very much hesitate to put this card here because, frankly, I love the card. However, I recognize that a population of Hearthstone players appreciate aggressive decks, and this card is a cornerstone to countering decks like that. This is, naturally, Witchwood Grizzly. This card being more powerful the more aggressive your opponent is being honestly makes it more akin to a tech card. However, certain synergies can enable this card to become even more absurd, meaning it can become a threat in tempo and control matchups as well. So this card will be useful in many cases, but particularly strong against aggro, making it quite possibly a force that will stop many aggressive decks in the meta. While I appreciate that, I'm sure many other Hearthstone players are dreading that day, so my number 3 slot goes out to those people. Every expansion, Blizzard tries to install a class theme, and the majority of the time that theme falls flat on its face. For every evolved shaman we get, we also get a freeze shaman, elemental shaman, overload shaman, totem shaman, and jade shaman. Moving away from shaman, Blizzard has decided to try to make hand druid a thing, which let's just say I'm not optimistic about. While some of these cards are decent enough, the pathetic backbone of this mechanic is built upon the card Witchwood Apple. Blizzard, I see what you're doing. 2 mana, draw 3 terrible cards, it sounds fine on paper, but it doesn't work out. Between the down cost of 2 mana and the resulting cards not being worth the investment, every way that you can play this card remains lacking. Compare and contrast with Ravencaller if you're still skeptical. It gives cards that are actually capable of being played, and it gives a body on its 3 mana effect. This card provides no body and worse cards, for the luxury of there being one more treant. So this card exists only for its synergies, which have been proven time and time again to not be good enough on their own. The Rush minions of this set all seem to be just a little lacking, but it's possible that they will surprise players with their flexibility. Regardless, a mechanic with more average cards simply needs a good synergy to get going, exactly like Countess Ashmore provides. To that end, we have Town Crier, the beautiful new 1-drop for a new breed of warrior. Since pirates appear to be abandoning warrior for the time being, this class is in dire need for a strong low-cost effect. Town Crier enables that, while also avoiding an overly aggressive effect, just like a good 1-drop should. While I'm not certain that a Rush Warrior will be able to succeed, I am certain that if it does, it will be in large part because of this card. Speaking of 1-drops, this expansion appears to have quite a lack of the things, and the few that exist are very control-oriented. While I can see my precious Echo Wisp simply couldn't see play, it does bring into question the danger of creating 0 or 1 cost Echo cards. To that end, oh dear god, it's Glinda Crowskin! Sure, the 6 mana cost prevents copious cohesions with aggressive decks, but the strength of a low-cost Echo is just horrifying. If Arcane Giant wasn't rotating, I would be terrified of the combo potential, and that's just from 2 cards. Let me be clear, a 2-card combo can produce, for 6 mana, 51-55 in stats. That is absurd. Even without giants, this card can turn any 1-drop or 2-drop into a dangerous threat if it is allowed to live, so it's worth keeping an eye on as the game moves forward. Guys, I really want to like Deadly Arsenal. I mean that sincerely. But for the life of me, I cannot see how this card can function with the current structure of how Hearthstone works. If you have a high attack weapon in your deck, this card is good for control, provided that you haven't drawn that weapon. That set of clauses isn't feasible, especially since you also can't have low attack weapons in your deck. If you build a deck with selective minions, only high attack weapons, and then a bunch of control spells like this, then this card is decent. If a deck like that sounds buildable for you, then go for it, but it seems like this card demands synergies that Hearthstone is simply unable to provide. Out of every single card in this set, one stands alone: Hagatha the Witch. This card gives the Shaman class an offer: create a slower and more methodical deck, and Hagatha will make it great. Applying spell generation to minion plays creates the beautiful dichotomy of great but finite power, while the card itself begs for a strategic and controlling exchange between two opponents. This card joins the ranks of the high-cost hero cards, providing great power that is tied to your deck and cards rather than to the activation of your hero power. It is unique, it is interesting, and it is powerful. I look forward both to facing off against this monster, and to playing her myself if I'm lucky enough to open a copy. Who am I kidding? I haven't played much Shaman before. I'll probably craft Hagatha and then try creating this deck myself. Everyone, I would like to introduce you to Yogg-Saron. This card is interesting because it can get stronger and stronger in the right deck, but it can also backfire quite easily. Now, compare this to Shudderwalk, which does the same thing except you have complete control over it. Like, where do I even begin? Saronite Chaingain, Baleful Banker, Prince Valinar, Bone Mare, Grumble Worldshaker, The Darkness, Zola the Gorgon, Spiteful Summoner, Acidic Swamp Ooze, the list goes on. And the list will keep going on as new cards and new battle cries are revealed in future expansions. The sheer power that could be produced with a card such as this is staggering, not to mention controllable. In the appropriate deck, this card can be horrifying, and I firmly believe that such a deck can exist. Still, I can't help but get excited for it. Staggering power aside, this card is actually quite intriguing to consider for deck construction. I just fear that the deck that this card becomes tied to will have too strong of an endgame effect. I need to give Blizzard some credit for this expansion. It was challenging for me to pick out the top 3 Foreseen, and I'm actually more excited for the top 3 cards than I am afraid. Even with Witchwood Apple and Deadly Arsenal, you can tell that there are times that these bad cards can be okay. It's just that those times don't come often. However, one card in this set is a monument to Blizzard's sins, being universally better than a previously printed card, and it's still being terrible. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Snap Freeze, also known as Shatter 2 Electric Boogaloo. Blizzard, I admire what you're trying to do, giving us more options in a single card, but both options for this card suck. Spending a card to freeze one minion sucks. Destroying a minion that's already frozen sucks. You already crippled Mage, Blizzard. How dare you prolong their suffering? Overall, this expansion is looking to be a pretty healthy one. The harder it is to identify which cards are particularly powerful, the more balanced the expansion is overall. Does that mean that the meta will be healthy and fun? I have no idea. While I can't predict the effects of certain cards, the meta is beyond. We are losing 314 cards to rotation and getting back another 135. That's 29% of our cards lost and another 12% gained back. The only way to know what's going to work and what won't is to wait and see. Let me know what powerful or pitiful cards you think I missed. Until then, I'll see you in the Witchwood next time.